I get paid to cry at people's funerals. I know it sounds strange, maybe even grotesque, but when you're an out-of-work actress in Texas, strange pays better than waiting tables. I didn't start out thinking this would be my life. There was a time I was chasing auditions, doing regional theater, TV commercials, or the occasional student film. I thought I could make it. But after a year of silence, of waiting by the phone, of hoping for a call that never came, my savings ran out. I had to move home. And that's when a Craigslist ad found me. Mourners wanted. Must show emotion on cue. Cash paid same day. I showed up at Kendry and Son's funeral services not knowing what to expect. The building was squat and brick, tucked between a payday loan office and a shuttered convenience store. The neon sign outside buzzed weakly, the kind of flicker that makes your eyes hurt. There weren't any sons. Just Kendry, a thin, gaunt man with skin like parchment, gray eyes that never quite focused, and a smell of bleach and smoke that seemed to cling to him. He didn't smile. He didn't ask me questions. He just handed me a folded sheet with the time of the service and said, "You show up, you cry, you don't ask questions. Families want to feel their loved one mattered. That's where you come in." The first funeral was awkward. A woman in her 70s. Cancer. Her children gathered around, whispering to one another, hugging her pictures, patting the casket. I sat near the front, holding a tissue, trying not to overdo it, trying to get the crying right without looking ridiculous. My chest ached, and the tears came slowly at first, then faster, until my face was damp and my hands shaking from holding the tissue. It felt wrong, but also strangely satisfying. I was helping, in a small way, making the grief feel fuller, less empty. It was a long first day, but as we were wrapping up, Kendry handed me an envelope of cash. I felt something I hadn't felt in months, relief. After a few more funerals, I started getting used to the rhythm, arrive, stand near the front, sit, dab at my eyes, offer comfort when a family member came close. People thanked me politely, sometimes with a hug, sometimes with a hand on my shoulder. I didn't know the deceased, but that didn't matter. I didn't ask questions. Kendry never did. Some days it still felt wrong. My chest would tighten when I saw the casket, or when someone's wailing echoed down the small hall. Sometimes I felt like I shouldn't be there at all, like an intruder in someone else's grief. But most of the time, the money was enough to drown that feeling out. I started noticing things, not about the funerals themselves, but about the routine. How Kendry moved quietly between rooms, checking the schedule, adjusting flowers, making notes. How the same cleaning crew appeared early every morning, sweeping and dusting, even when no one had requested it. And then there was the man. Tall and thin, always standing across the street, just beyond the windows, smoking or shifting his weight from foot to foot. He never came inside. He never spoke. Just watched. I tried to tell myself he was a neighbor, or just some loner. But he was there again and again. I started paying him less attention. I had to focus on the crying, the tissues, the comfort. It was exhausting. The hours were long, the rooms warm and still, the smell of flowers heavy in the air. I began to sink into the routine, almost forgetting the man outside entirely. Weeks passed. The pattern continued. I was getting used to the motions, the faces, the quiet expectations. Some funerals were chaotic, messy, loud. Others were quieter, smaller. But I didn't think much about it. I did my job. I cried. I offered comfort. I took the money. There were people from all walks of life at these funerals. There were rangers, judges, athletes, heck, even some even worked in the circus. But I'll never forget meeting a doctor. A few polite words, nothing dramatic. But he was so slick. So well spoken. I remembered his handsome face like it was my job. Something about him felt too precise, too calm. But I didn't think much of it. A week later, I saw him again, on a television commercial for Arby's. Grinning. Perfect teeth. Same face, same voice. I froze. My stomach dropped. He'd been at the funeral. Crying politely. Offering condolences. Sitting there like a part of the family. He wasn't a doctor. He was just like me. An actor. If he had been pretending, that meant everyone else in that sparse room could have been paid to be there as well. I went back through every strange funeral in my head. The stiff body language. The rehearsed lines. The way nobody ever asked who I was, or who anyone else was. That's when it hit me. Some funerals were entirely fake. Every person in the room, an actor. The bodies were real, but the grief was staged. The next few days, I went to work as usual, but the fake funerals kept running through my head. Something about them didn't sit right. I found myself watching the guests more closely, noting little details I'd ignored before. The way some of them exchanged glances when they thought no one was looking. The way the caskets were always sealed. The way Kendry's hands lingered on the lids just a second too long. I started checking the names online. Obituaries, GoFundMe pages, social media. Nothing. It was like these people had never existed outside the funeral home. Then I noticed the tall man again, standing in his usual corner across the street, watching. Not observing the funeral home in general, he was watching those particular services, the quiet ones with only a handful of attendees. His attention was focused, precise. And slowly, piece by piece, it dawned on me, he wasn't a neighbor. He wasn't a distant relative. He was the reason the funerals existed. The quiet services, the missing records, Kendry's meticulous handling of the bodies, all of it revolved around him. The tall man had killed the people in those caskets. That's why no one else knew them. That's why the grief had to be manufactured. He wanted the ritual for himself. And Kendry? Kendry was his enabler, paid to take care of the bodies, to prepare the cremations, to keep the rest of the world from asking questions. My stomach turned. Every tear I had shed, every comforting word I had offered, every tissue I had dabbed at my eyes, it had been part of his game, part of his sick ritual. I realized then that I had been playing my part in a killer's theater, and that the man outside wasn't just watching, he was orchestrating it all, enjoying it from his vantage point across the street, entirely removed from the rest of the world. I quit the next morning, told Kendry I couldn't do it anymore. He didn't argue, just gave me a flat smile, like he'd been waiting for me to say it. I'm going to the cops tomorrow, going to fix this all up. But tonight's been strange. I feel like I've heard strange noises coming from outside my place. A few times, I could swear I even saw the tall man. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared. I'm just worried I know what comes next. They'll have to hire actors to cry for me.